Okay, good day everyone. So we are now discussing to you a major exam. So it's creating a personalized tour, spiel, or commentary. So basically, ito yung sasabihin natin or sinasabi natin sa ating mga guests or tourists, no? So as a tour guide, as part of our requirement or major exam, you are going to be tasked to create and execute and deliver your own tour commentaries or spiel. So ngayon, ano ba yung purpose na itong activity na to? Okay. So since your course is a competency-based course, it's a specific professional course. So these are the rationale why we have this kind of activity. First is for you to be able to conduct a comprehensive research on the information that you can be used as a tour spiel for selected tour sites. So later I will explain to you what do you mean by selected tour sites. Next is to be able to communicate the tour spiel in a way that it expresses your personality as a tour guide. So basically, what separates a good tour guide from the rest of the tour guides is that, of course, you have to own your spiel. You have to own your content. Parang ano rin siya, no? Parang ka artista. What makes your brand or what makes your name unique, diba? So of course, these are a series of combination from your looks, from your personality, from how do you deliver your script, how do you dance, do you sing well? So these are some of the characteristics. Just like in tour guiding, one of the aspect that you can show your own personality is through the use of your own unique or your own self-crafted tour skills or commentaries. Okay. Next is, of course, to be able to add value to the tour as a tour guide. So that at the end of the day, it's the always and the most important thing for a tour guide is, of course, to add value to whatever we are trying to do or achieve. Kasi, di ba, if we're not adding value, so most probably we're adding stress or trouble for the tourist, di ba? Of course, they are paying you to create value, not, of course, trouble, di ba? Sayang naman. Now, let's go now with the expected output of this exam. So we have two expected outputs. So the first one is you are expected to create a video blog or a recording. Now, the recording could be a simple cell phone recording that you're going to record yourself, or it could be in a form of a complete edited video recording using yung mga Adobe Primer natin, those things, no? Now, if you don't have the technical know-how, so of course that's understandable. So as long as you have a video that you have your, of course, I need to see you in the video to make sure that you are really performing the task. Kasi that's one part of my guidelines, no, para to ensure that you're really doing the activity. Hindi kasi pwedeng audio recording siya kasi wala kayo doon. So paano ko ma-ascertain kung kayo nga yung estudyante, di ba? So para masiguro natin hindi nyo lang siya pinaparecord kung saan-saan. At after all, this is an exam. So exam should be, of course, you need to do the exam. So it's parang ano siya, it's take-home exam na siya na you just have to perform this. Okay? So there is an ample time for you to prepare. Now, the time is we have minimum 5 minutes and maximum 10 minutes. Of course, don't exceed to the maximum minutes, please. Kasi, of course, in a class, marami po tayo. Of course, if you times the number of minutes into your class size, that will be a substantial amount of time. So as a professor, medyo limited din po yung time ko. Baka hindi ko po mapanood in fullness yung ginawa nyo. So ngayon, sayang na may effort ninyo. So of course, we are going to limit it to 5 minutes. That's the minimum. And maximum of 10 minutes. Okay? I hope you really understand that. Kahit i-edit nyo na lang or of course you concise, you try to ano nyo muna siya, i-prototype, meaning to say you read and then of course do the timing of the spiel. Yeah. Next, the video should start at the meeting point. So the meeting point will be defined later where you're going to meet the group. So saan kayo magkikita-kita. Now, what I do here is that you're going to, of course, you're going to be, kayo pong bahala sa meeting point ninyo. Of course, your script or your spiel will be dependent upon the chosen locality of your meeting point. Diba? So ano ba yung common meeting point natin? We have the hotel lobby. Of course, pag hotel lobby ka, ano yan, maglalakad kayo from your tourist destination, from the lobby, or going to board bus. So it's I leave it upon to you, di ba? Or pwede rin naman kayo magkita sa isang plaza, di ba? Sa plaza kayo magkikita or isang focal point here na yung mga tourists ay already nag-exist na sa lugar natin, di ba? Okay? So, bahala po kayo. Basta make it realistic. So, dapat siya ay talaga makatotohanan, talagang true to life siya na nangyayari. Next is the tour. You can use any platform as you may deem. Again, you can simple camera recording. Could be a yun nga, fully edited vlog if you want. Next, no actual tour to be conducted kasi of course we are under current restraint from of course face-to-face interaction, diba? So wala po actual tour na gaganapin. It should be purely off-site. Now, if you have a collection of your own materials prior to the pandemic, or you can sort these materials using the materials online, provided of course you provide the courtesy or credit to the owner of these pictures or video. No? So for the purpose of yun nga, uploading and of course acknowledgement. Next is another expected output here to be attached to your activity. A copy of the tour spiel. So the tour spiel or tour commentaries and other terminology, you have to furnish a copy of your tour spiel under the activity. So, developing tour spiel for our commentaries. So, you have another activity, dun nyo po ilalagay. So, bakit gano? Para yung script nyo, I could check that. I could verify the veracity ng script niyo. Of course, that includes your sources, that includes the materials, the link, diba? So, provide nyo po yun sa copy of the tour spiel. Next. So let's discuss about your tour spiel, so or tour commentary. So for your commentaries, sources should be vary. So of course, you have to make sure that you have different angle, or you're going to present the material into the light of a different perspective. Kasi syempre, if you're focusing on the certain perspective lang, it might be not that not that accurate, or sometimes it's accurate but it lacks the relevancy or the interesting component. No? So yeah, must be presented or anchored to a reputable source of data. Of course, we don't rely on blog, we don't rely on yun nga, baka mamaya conspiracy theory ka pa nag-rely, di ba? Of course, hindi po tayo ganun. So we have to cite a reliable. So how would you know it's reliable? Of course, if it's academically verified, let's say that's coming from the University of UST, UP, that's reliable. Another way is, of course, if there is a government institution or education institution that verifies the claim of that particular resources, that is reputable. Next, evaluate your sources. Of course, we have to evaluate the sources I previously mentioned a while ago, no? So now, in case that there is a conflicting data, for example, I have personally experienced yung data ni Wikipedia. It's really, of course, Wikipedia is it's, I could say it's 70% reliable, but not totally reliable, because Wikipedia is an open source, no? So pag open source siya, kahit sino pwede mag-edit nun, provided of course you have to cite the references. Kaso ang problema, minsan kasi na-edit ang Wikipedia without really establishing the accuracy of the edit or the yung new input niya. So for that sense, I find a contradicting data about sino ba yung talagang chief or chieftain ng lugar natin sa Maynila. No? For example, sino ba talagang kasama ni Raha Sulaiman? Raha Matanda? Or, I mean, sino ba yung Raha or Sultan na next after Raha Sulaiman? So may mga contradictions ako nakita. For example, some say Raha Matanda, some say Lakandula, and those things. So of course, these are prehistorical or pre-written history na medyo, some information might be not that well validated. So of course, if in that case, if you find contradicting or meron siyang inaccuracy, you suspect that there is a possible other angle, You can, of course, you can cite that, and of course, you can always say sa mga tourists natin na this information is not yet, or it is most likely ganun siya, di ba? But of course, that is yet to be found by our historians, di ba? Kasi these are, of course, historical figures. And what if kung may historian kang kasama sa bus, di ba? Or you might know, kasi maaaring may cultural, cultural tourist dyan or professor siya ng history na part of your tour. Of course, that will create a lot of nuisance for you or problem for you along the way. Next. Next is you have to narrow down your topic because of course the spill or yung ating resources or materials are of course presented in a manner that is not really designed for a tour, for a tour guiding activity. So as a tour guide, you have to narrow down the topic and create or format that in a way that is applicable for the tour. Kasi normally these resources are presented in a form of narrations or in a form of a historical recordings. No? So they are neither in a way that is appropriate for tour guiding. On, of course, kasi kung binasa mo lang siya sa Wikipedia, it's being presented scholastically. So hindi siya appropriate for tour guiding. And of course, that is uh, very much unacceptable or parang frustrating on the part of the tourist because the tourist will already has this idea or has this kind of um, perception about you na hindi ka prepared or you didn't come up with any creative way of creating your own tour spiel. Kasi nababasa nila yung sinasabi mo, di ba? Parang teacher yan. For example, ako, teacher nyo. Di ba teacher nyo ako, di ba? Yan. So, kunwari yung sinasabi ko nasa textbook or nasa libro nyo naman. So, bakit pa ako magsasalita nun, di ba? Basahin nyo na lang. So, kung teacher, yun ang trabaho, hindi kami teacher. We are most likely mga reader kami. Nagbabasa lang kami, di ba? So, ganun siya. So, just imagine how much you feel na gano'n yung teacher niya, di ba? Yung teacher na binabasa niya lang, wala siyang dinadagdag sa textbook, pinabasa niya lang. So kung nagtanong ka, in-explain niya lang, yung explanation ginagamit niya sa book, di ba? Yung kung ano yung explanation ng book, yun na yun. Di ba? So what's the purpose of having that kind of teacher? Di ba? Parang it defeats the purpose of education. So as a tour guide, similar fashion tayo, no? So we are adding more to the information. We're presenting that in a digestible form na madaling maintindihan ng ating mga tourists. Okay. So in that sense, we have to narrow down the topic, apply that in our situation as in tour guiding, and we have to limit the point, or let's say we have to limit the most important points because this information are presented in a very broad or complex manner. If we could simplify that, not in a point na very simple naman siya, it almost remove the substance in the material. But of course, we have to make sure that it still remain relevant or significant in our context. And of course, we have to remember the acronym KEYS. No, what's KEYS? Keep it simple and short. We have to, of course, to take consideration of the limited attentive span of our tourists. Next is consider your audience. Of course, the information should be just like what the author till then in his book have commented that the information should be relate to the audience experience and of course interest. Kasi totally useless naman siya if you're stating this information that are of course of no interest to your tourists or to your audience, diba? Useless siya. For example, you're a tourism student. I'm talking here about let's say geology or I'm talking here about biochemistry. So of course, totally, some of you might be appealing in that subject, but of course, majority of you, hindi mukhang ano yung pinagsasabi ni sir, di ba? Parang ganun. So because it's off the topic, it's off your interest. No? In a similar fashion, we have to understand our target audience. We have to deliver that, and we have to communicate that in the language and the interest that they would understand. Next, of course, we have to begin with the question with why. That is what we have pointed out, di ba, sa ating mga previous lesson. There is a book, di ba, about asking the question why. Because if we really understand why we're doing these things, we can get to the hit bottom of the, from the mere essentials talaga. Kung bakit ba natin siya ginagawa. And of course, nothing really hit the mark if you know what you're trying to achieve and what people are looking to, diba? That's basically why. So before you start any commentaries or spiel, you ask a question why. So bakit ginawa ni Magellan? Why do you think they need to settle down in Intramuros? Why do you think they need to revolt from Spanish? Why do you think that the Katipuneros are hesitant in rescuing Dr. Rizal? Why do you think Dr. Rizal has no part in the or never did he dream to become a part of the revolution led by Andres Bonifacio? So these are some of the questions that might very interesting, diba? So it could be related, could be convey in a very interesting fashion na yung audience nyo, kahit foreigner sila, pwede natin siyang i-relate na provided na of course we have to, make the effort to connect the story to them. Okay? So that's the beauty here. Okay? Next, of course, you have to organize the flow of your spiel. Of course, it depends, no? So we have the four different types of tour spiels or commentaries. You might have to consider, of course, the mandatory or the required. You have to consider the informative, of course, the requested, and of course, the optionals or yung ating mga karagdagan, mga joke natin, mga anecdote. Of course, hindi naman natin siya ginagawa based on the commentaries, no? Baka sabihin niya, sir, gagawin ko siya based on the commentaries. Hindi po. We have to create that in synergy or para siyang mixture. I-mix niyo po siya. May mandatory sa tour spiel nyo, may mandatory, may informative, may optional, mayroon kayong requested. So, depende yan, no? I-mix niyo siya. Hindi pwedeng isang part ganito, isang part ganito, isang part ganito. Hindi po. Kasi sa tunay na buhay, lahat yan nakamix, diba? Nakamix yan. So, para siyang cake, no? Ang cake mo, hindi ka gumawa, hindi siya layered cake na ito yung chocolate flavor, ube flavor, ito yung custard flavor. Hindi. Naka-marble yan. So, ibig sabihin, may part, yung part dyan na chocolate, marble, custard, halo-halo sila. So, ganun ha. So, hindi po tayo gumagawa niyan. Now, we can arrange that in certain logic that we would want. For example, we can start from the complex idea down to the specific, or specific going to the complex. For example, if you're discussing Tramuros, you can start Tramuros. And then eventually at the end of the tour, it's expanding, covering the whole country, whole Philippines, diba? Or vice versa. You can start with the concept, general concept about Philippines, and we point it down, or we zoom it in a particular setting or a particular area in Intramuros. For example, Manila Cathedral or the San Agustin Church or Fort Santiago or the National Museum if you want. So these are some of the structures that you can do. Now, create a structure. I have discussed about the structures, no? So there are many things that we can use. You can use chronological, you can use place by place, or according to the place, or sequence of place. You can use but my favorite, may bias ako doon, is it's based on theme or thematics. So for example, if my tourist will be Japanese, I will of course have this kind of theme among the Japanese, diba? Sa kanila kasing history, sa Philippines kasi pag sinabi mo Japanese, we are only concerned about the World War II. But of course, that is not really true. The Japanese have been here in the Philippines far more, much more earlier compared with the Spanish conquistadors or the Spanish colonists. So, of course, they have already established a settlement here. So, pwede mo i-highlight yon. So, you can highlight your tour based on the theme, chronological, in a sense na during the pre-Spanish occupation, what's the life of the Japanese and its relation to the native Filipinos. And then during the Spanish occupation, the life of Japanese and its relationship with the natives and the Spanish colonizers. And then, of course, the impact of other themes in Japan that you may insert. And of course, yung World War II. But of course, don't deal much with the negative, no. So you have to also be sensitive, culturally sensitive about that. So that's for the Japanese. But for the Chinese, pwede rin, kayo na yun, you have to research that, di ba? So, aralin natin, ha? So, of course, know your market. Sabi nga ni Art of War, know your enemy and know yourself, you will win hundred of battles. But if you don't know yourself, but you know your enemy, the chances are 50-50, 50% possible loss or 50% gain, di ba? Now, vice versa din yan. If you know yourself but you don't know the enemy, chances are you are going to lose 50 battles but you're going to win 50 battles, so 50-50. But unfortunate part here, if you don't know yourself, you don't know your enemy, you don't know your audience, surely 0% wala kang panalo sa battle because you don't know what to begin, di ba? So yun siya. Now that's one tip from your side na you can add. So know your audience very well. Next, tour spill, communicating your spill. Of course, we have to make sure that it's passing the 7 C's of effective communications, diba? Content, courtesy, clarity, those things. We have discussed that in our previous lessons. Now, it must be educational and entertaining in a way. And of course, it must add value to our guest experience. So it's always to the point na we should look na are we doing great service to our guests, diba? Ano siya? Next. Okay, grading criteria. So of course, I have to grade it. This exam. Hi. For grading, we have to go back with our rationale or objectives. So what's our objective? Again, these are the objectives that we have bear in mind in founding this activity. So that will be used as your criteria or our guidance for grading your work. So I have created a KPI or key performance indicator for each criteria. So for the criteria one, so it's the conduct of comprehensive research. So my key indicator here is I would know if you really conduct a good comprehensive research is the quality of the materials that you have cited to or you have referred to should be reputable and vetted by government entities. Meaning to say na check siya or the accuracy could be in harmony or in synchronous with other related government publications. Next, at least the quantity. The quantity should be at least 3 sources of information. So yan po siya. Either primary or secondary sources of information. So that's my KPI, or that in that way I will grade your work, especially for your copy of your tour spill. Next, for the performance or delivery, communicate the tour spill. So it will be graded using the 3 KPIs or tatlong KPIs. Yeah. So we have relevancy, effective communication, and personalize. Okay, or viewing your own personality or persona. The first one is relevancy. How would I know if your work is relevant or not? Now, I define relevancy as, of course, if you have delivered your tour spiel relevant, or meaning to say, some sort, it is applicable to the group, diba? To the group or to your audience. Na it's also, it identifies the place being described. Meaning to say, historically, culturally, tama yung sinasabi mo. Baka mamaya mali-mali siya. Okay. And of course, the appropriateness. Yan. Next, effective communication. Again, if you deliver the 7 C's, that should be enough for you to establish the rapport. So again, if you forgot the 7 C's, please go back to my previous videos. Okay. Next, personalize. So in personalize, you're imbuing your own personality to your work or to your tour spiel. So tour spiel should be crafted in a way that it is reflective of your guide passion or yung passion ninyo or yung interest nyo sa subject or yung personality nyo mismo. How do you see things? Of course, a tour guide should be able to, before he could present things, he could be able to understand it first, then present it, and then later on, interpret it. Parang you're sharing your own perspective on the matter sa mga lugar na yun. Now, of course, we avoid copy and paste, parroting the idea from the original source. Okay, so how do we get away from this? The of course, kung galing sa, let's say, Wikipedia yung gawa ninyo or sources nyo, First place, reputable ba siya? Of course, kung may link naman doon, you can check the actual origin, the original source. So that will be much more reputable rather than WikiLink or WikiLink today, Wikipedia. Okay. Now, another way of how would you deal with that is, of course, you can rephrase. But, syempre, pag ni-rephrase mo lang siya parang 'di ba yung thought nung writer nandoon pa rin, it's not really yours, no. Kung di kaya ng rephrase, of course, reconstruct. So pag sinabi reconstruct, you have to jumble the words or paragraph in a form that it's still coherent but of course it represents a different idea. Now, kung hindi pa rin kaya at gusto mo, you would want to make it totally personal or totally different from the main source, which is I would like you to do so is of course retell or you have to create your own story or retell the story. So yung ating mga sources kasi may story siyang sinasabi. Now we have to approach the story into a different angle na nakikita natin based on our personality. Now we're not creating a new story or a new information or new drama. Like for example, si Magellan napatay siya sa Battle of Mactan, di ba? So we're not refuting the fact. So ang ginagawa lang natin is we're trying to present that in another angle na Magellan have because of his boastfulness and of course his uh, confidence that he could using much more modern technology, he feels that these native are of course not equal to their superior technological advancement despite the obvious numerical advantage of Lapu-Lapu. Now, Magellan, or you can emphasize that Magellan had been Magellan, if only he did, di ba, have or allow the support of yung rival chieftain ni Lapu-Lapu, perhaps the story will be a different one. Diba? Or you can also state that if Magellan has been patient enough to observe the strategy of Lapu-Lapu, that could be a different story. Diba? So of course, this could be a possible scenario. How would you personalize? Rather than, of course, the mere stating of the fact in the textbook is too much more plain or boring siya. Again, we have to appeal to the emotion of the person. Again, you have three methods. No? You have rephrase, re- reconstruct, and retell. But I would advise you to retell it kasi mas dun lalabas yung personality mo. Of course, pag reconstruct mo lang saka rephrase, parang ang babaw na lang. So of course, you have to absorb the story. You have to understand the story, absorb the story, and then present the story as if you, of course, based on what you understand or what you think about the story, and then interpret the story for your tours. Ganun yung function natin as a tour guide, right? So yeah. Next criteria would be to add value to the tour as a tour guide. So of course, how would I know if you add value? Okay, these are my key indicator, no? Impact. Delivery of result is in more knowledge and appreciation of the place. I mean to say, if after the tour I gain knowledge, I gain a better appreciation in the place, therefore you're an effective tour guide because you add value. Next, deliver result in a memorable experience for the tourist. So, ibig sabihin, pag natawa siya, nag-enjoy, it will tend to not to forget the tour. Of course, you are effective. Then siya. Now, let's go to the grading system or scoring. So for outstanding, meaning to say he had satisfied all the six KPIs as indicated, 100 points. If it's acceptable, meaning to say, of course, hindi niya na-satisfy lahat, may isang nakalimutan. Okay. So that is 88 points. Now, 75 points if it's needs improvement or let's say na-satisfy niya lang apat. Now, you're unacceptable mean to say you have to repeat or rework your activity. So you have to resubmit that if you gain 50 points. Now your total score will remain 50 points plus the fact that you have to submit or resubmit your work. Ganun siya. So mean to say you failed to meet the four criterias as indicated. So pag ganyan po yung score nyo, you have to resubmit. The score remain the same. So wala po tayong magagawa dyan na there is no retake in this exam. So no retake po tayo. So as is, where is. So galingan po natin. Kasi wala naman po tayong, di ba, wala naman po kayo narinig na midterm, prelim, or finals na retake, di ba? Nire-retake. Diba? Walang ganon. Next. Non-submission or no submission is equals to 0 points. Tardiness, there will be a deduction of 5 points per day of tardiness. Yan. So 5 points per day of tardiness. So ganun po siya. Provisions na lang natin dito in case na may force majeure or act of God. Perhaps we could extend the deadline because of course, possible loss of internet connection due to typhoon, earthquake, fire, other force majeure. Instructions. So you have to create a video presentation or blog as per a specified time. So use your tour spiel previously created. So you have your activity, no, developing your tour skills and commentaries. So yun. So may guidance on how will you create your own tour spiel or commentaries. Next, the tour site is referred to any place in Intramuros except Fort Santiago because your Fort Santiago we're going to use this as your final exam. Parang dun yung basis natin, Fort Santiago. And or any places or any institution belonging to Rizal Park Complex, for example, National Museum, National yung Luneta, or we have the 3 museums there, no? So we have the anthropology, the natural history, we have the fine arts. So, bahala kayo mamili doon. Next, meeting place, discretion na po ng student kung saan nyo kikitain yung tourist nyo. So, dyan rin po papasok yung creativity nyo. So, of course, you have to incorporate that to your tour commentaries or spiel. Kasi, di ba, yun ang start ng spiel niya eh. Next, target market. Surname starting from A to M will have the target market of American, Chinese. So these are half Chinese, half American. No? So they are from United States. So of course, there is a mixture of mostly American citizens nila. Pero syempre, very strong yung Chinese heritage nila. So of course, you have to create tours based, or you have to present the tour based on this particular group. So ano lang siya eh. But in practice naman kasi, normally multi-ethnical or diverse yung group natin. So parang pag diverse yung group mo, you cannot really tailor fit that to a specific group. And in this case, it's a specific group. So you need to tailor fit it. Okay, next. Surname starting from N to Z would be a Japanese retiree group. So ito yung mga may edad na kasi retiree. No? So these are Japanese. Of course, presumption na lang natin kasi normally it should be spoken in language na Japanese, no? Presumption na lang natin they take the English tour kasi these people are very much knowledgeable about sa English. Nakakaintindi sila ng English. So of course, syempre, hindi sila native, so there are minor consideration when you're speaking the English language, no? So of course, alam niyo na gagawin niyo, you have to simplify yung English niyo. Okay? We have to simplify the English here kasi retirees siya, medyo matatanda. At the same time, they're not native English speakers. So happen to be gusto lang nila mag-practice ng English skills nila. Because retirees are commonly the one who are traveling outside of Japan or they're the one who are traveling a lot. Diba? So part ng kanila lifestyle yan. Next, upload your work via YouTube link, or if you don't want any cloud storage or using, let's say, Google Drive in Microsoft natin, okay, and link in the MS Teams, or if you don't have the MS Teams, yung other platform, so yung approved platform natin, no? So yeah. Video format as deemed by the students. Yan. So, in case na hindi pa po gumagana yung MS Teams ninyo or yung approved platform natin, okay, approved platform natin, let's say, other platform yung ating Blackboard, ganyan. So, kung di pa siya, you might PM me para at least alam ko. No? So, i-PM nyo po ako or email me para alam ko po na nagsasubmit kayo. Okay? So, yun po. Okay, so my presentation ends. So, yun po. Maraming salamat.